Good. All right. Well, that segues nicely into our final topic, which is price for today's construction economy. Right. So 2020 has been let's just say, an interesting year, an interesting start to another decade. And so I just like to start with you sharing what what it means to make sure that your software providers and other providers understand the economy that you work within.
So that has made lots of interesting conversations this year because generally construction is down across the country, right? And felt a lull. And so then that brought light to, um, where, what are you paying for based on a set fee, right? A set amount. What are you paying for that scales with the growth of your company, which, and you just really have to look at that and see which way we're going. And so the idea of something that kind of scales with your growth. If we get more work and we're more profitable, sure, we can pay some more. That makes sense. We have more work. We're doing better. When it's just a solid set amount, and I'm feeling that pain with some other vendors and stuff right now, is that, we're supposed to pay this set amount no matter what our usage is or anything. And that can be difficult when things slow down. And so that's a part of it, and that's a consideration. And I guess the COVID, you mentioning that with the slowdown made me think of that. But when I'm looking at pricing for today's construction economy, I guess when we came into the pricing and trying to evaluate which software we were going to use, it wasn't just about the low number. It was about value. And there were some very low dollar companies that they were startups. We weren't sure how they'd be around financially in 2 years or 3 years. I'm always a little wary of those that come from a foreign country, from overseas, and want to get into the U.S. market, because the U.S. market builds things differently than they do in most overseas countries. And so we had to scrub a couple of those out. And so if they don't have a module called RFIs, that's a good clue that maybe they're doing something a little bit differently. And so scrub a couple of those out. But then it was about the value. And really, construction's about managing risk. That's what it's always been about. If you have lower risk on a project, if you're a CM agent, then there's less revenue. If you're taking on the higher risk project and you execute it successfully, you have higher revenue. That's what construction, that's the core of what it is. And so looking for the software that best manages your risk. Because if you can manage the risk and take on those other projects that other people might be worried about, or cover yourself so you don't have the errors, right? Make a mistake that costs the company $30,000 or $50,000 because we're managing the information better, we're reducing our risk and we're able to be more profitable. And so really it came down to us when for pricing for today's construction economy was a lot of it was how well is this going to manage our risk? And so a big part of that was the ability to tie in with the financials and track the changes and potential change orders, actual change orders. That was a big risk pool that could be managed, especially if we pull it all in together. And so then that made the pricing more valuable in what we were doing. I don't expect the risk to get any easier. What's happening is clients are generally asking for their buildings to be built faster. They're looking for bigger projects generally across the board, and they're expecting the same quality that they've had for a number of years. And so if you're able to manage the information and manage that risk better that comes from a faster project, then that's of a bigger value. That's then more important to me and more important to what we do. And so that's something to consider in the pricing and in the search. And then also the pricing mechanism, it's hard to go between them. But I guess the thing to watch out for is if every individual has to pay to play, you don't get the people playing. right? What you need to do is have some sort of pricing mechanism that lets everybody come to the table without individuals having to buy in. And that's what's got me about before on projects is, yes, that trade contractor would have to pay some money to get in, and this one would have to pay some money to get in. Getting through those financial hurdles was always difficult, and people didn't participate. And so I've had some people come back to me, well, but then you're paying for them. Yes, we realize we're paying for them because paying for them makes our life better. And if that sounds foreign to you, check out the Nash equilibrium. You won a Nobel Prize for it. But basically, gaming theory says you can help other people, and by helping other people, you help yourself. And that's kind of what I've seen a lot with the project site solution is where it's Bennett, and if we can work to help everybody, everyone comes out in a better situation than if they broke it down individually.
Cool. So a couple closing thoughts that I have, and then Benjamin, I'll hand it to you for your final closing thoughts. But the story that I tell, again, I mentioned I had a 10-year intervening time between working with contractors. And I remember in 2 prior lives ago, it was the company's largest deal ever, and working with top 10 general contractor in the United States. And the difference between what they paid, and I averaged this over a 10-year life span, because that's about how long I'm used to contractors holding on to their project control solution. 10 years is typically the minimum. We're just starting to roll customers off of a prior platform of ours onto Project Site after 20 years. So this is going to be a 10 to 20 year investment that you're making. And it's God's honest truth. It's just stunning to me that this happened in this industry, especially with what you just mentioned, Benjamin, as far as, construction companies typically were running themselves in a good year at a 4% margin. That'd be like a banner year nowadays. Yeah. And this company would have paid in the order of about $1 million over 10 years. And that same company is now paying over $2 million a year. So it went from 1 million over 10 years to 20 million over 10 years. I honestly just don't understand how has project controls gotten 20 times better in that intervening time? No. I'll tell you right now, the answer is no. And then the other part that then corroborated that is we were talking with some recent former employees, and they were talking about internally the terms that are used as we are the Mercedes, we are the BMW, we are the Audi, maybe even we are the Ferrari of project control solution. I'm like, project control should be a Camry at best for a company. It's necessary. You need a good project control solution, but are you going to win business because of the software you use to manage RFIs? I don't think so. But anyways, that's my jaded perspective. Any insight or feedback on that, Benjamin?
That yes, I see that regularly with the new technologies. Is somewhere someone wrote a book or taught a seminar that lots of these technology people attended and said, you find out how much you save people. So if we're going to save them 5%, we're going to charge them 4.5%. And then they're better off and we make the money. And that seems to be pervasive throughout software and technology. And I don't think that applies well to construction, because construction is a risk basis. And that software company, I've yet to have any of them that were taking on the risk. I've not seen any that got paid based on the profitability of the project. They just get paid a set fee. And so because they're not taking in that risk, they need to be, like you said, down there lower. They need to be in the Camry range, or, like you see on construction sites all the time. It's just that pickup truck that's the 3/4 ton truck that you put stuff in the back of, and it's been around a long time, and you just work it and work it and work it to make your money out of it. That's your project management software. Stout, solid, and there. It doesn't need all the bells and whistles. It doesn't need a sunroof. It just and so at the same time, you want it to be deep and dive into what you needed to do. And so I think that's the difference between bells and whistles and a workhorse is how it performs and what it does. And so I guess everyone always likes to show off, hey, this is how we handle submittals, this is how we handle RFIs. Those are the easy workflows, right? Those are the simple ones, right? Let's get into some of the other ones. Let's dive into, like, say, job costing. Let's dive into the daily reports. Let's dive into the stuff where lots of people are going to be interfacing and pulling through. And let's see if it makes that easier for us and doesn't try to charge us for the world. So those are some of my thoughts there, Dan.
Cool. Awesome. So I think the final question that I have, and then I'll hand it back over to Scott, is just as much as you can share, how's the implementation been going so far?
It's been going really well. Having helped roll out other implementations at other times and other places, then the best one about this one is our individuals in the company are enjoying using the software. We're not having to fight anybody over it. And in the past, I've had to fight them. This is what you have to use. This one, it's like, here, you can use this. And they're like, hey, this is great. We want to use it. And so that has made all the difference in the implementation, in that we've actually had to pull reins and say, we got to test it a little bit first, right? We let our testers go, and our testers then wanted to implement it on their projects. It's like, no, we've got to get our testing done and our configuration done. Like, well, let me test it on my project. Well, we can do that on one, not five. And so that has been a very different experience in rolling it out, that everybody wants to be using it because they find it that much easier. And not just our group. We've had architects and engineers and owners and others that are also like, well, we want to use that. Let's get it going. And how fast can we get that happen? And that's been really nice about Project Site.
Yeah, and I remember you guys explicitly putting that in front of us. We better not have to sell this. It better sell itself. So I'm glad to hear. We felt confident that was going to be true. It's good to hear that it actually is true. So